My name is Joshua Franklin, and I'm going to take you through my slides for financial aid in higher education. I see this to be one of the major issues with furthering your education. Not everybody's able to afford furthering their education, so we have to go through financial aid to get a little help with paying for books and tuition and all other sources that we need. So just follow along with me, and I'll tell you my views on it, the issues with it, and what have been started to make it better. All right, there's different types of financial aid programs. Obviously, most of us know you go through like Stafford student loans, stuff like that. Okay, but these are different types of actual programs. First is need-based programs. With need-based aid programs, it's designed for students who have the greatest financial need. These are students who come from low-income families. Maybe they don't have their original families anymore. Maybe they go through DHS and stuff like that. Need-based are to help these students be able to further their education. Colleges want to give everybody the opportunity to continue education so that they can get the degree that they need to move on to a career later on in life. Another aid program is merit or non-need aid programs. These are designed for the state's best and brightest students. These are the kids that will get scholarships, have good grades, and stuff like that. Basically, model citizens. Some of them may also fall in the need-based. They may be low income and just excel at schoolwork, but some of them may come from a more wealthy family and also get good grades, so they would qualify for the merit or non-need aid program. Okay, let's go over the need-based aid programs for a second. Okay, as I said, these are for students who need a little more assistance than the rest. It helps them increase access to students who would not be able to afford higher education. So students, like I said before, who don't come from wealthy families, maybe come from poverty, that want to further their education, sometimes won't be able to without this assistance. It also helps increase the success rate of students who might not be able to complete a degree program without aid. That's saying that students got in, maybe on a scholarship, maybe on a grant, but the grant's only covered for a certain amount of time. Well, when these students run out of this money, they're going to need other assistance to continue to further their education. Once again, this is what a needs-based education aid program would help them do. Now on to merit or non-need aid programs. These programs are designed to keep academically well-prepared students in their home state to get their education. This also helps the state with their statistics and how many kids went to, let's say a high school in that state and stayed at their home state to complete their bachelor's degree, their master's degree, maybe their doctorate degree. Okay, this also keeps these same students in their home state as they enter the workforce. So that way, this university is pretty much paying for this person that's going to be in their community working. So I think it all goes full circle in that they're paying for their education, but yet they're still going to see some kind of residual. Okay, when you have an increase in non-need based funding, it has a couple of effects. One of the main effects that I've seen and that I researched is that it reduces the funds for need-based programs. To me, that's like taking money away from the kids that need this, maybe in some people's opinion, more than the merit scholars. So now instead of, we'll just use a rough number, instead of 10 needy kids getting to further their education, maybe you only have 8 now. Okay, and as you can see on my slide, it says almost $2,000, sometimes more amount was funded in the non-need based funding than there was in the need based. And this was a statistic from 2002 to 2013. And you can see on the graph below where I got that stat from. Okay, wealthier students get funding over students that can't afford to further their education. As I stated before, it's not always wealthier students. It could still be students that come from poverty, but just excelled in high school or wherever to get good enough grades to get that merit, um, get considered as a merit student. So don't take the wealthier. It doesn't always have to be wealthier students. All right. Another issue is how funding is available for part-time students and full-time students. Some people are not able to go to school full-time due to them having a job, or maybe they have to take care of their family at home. Well, full-time students, as I know, can get some benefits from being full-time. Well, I know you get tax breaks for sure, but as well, you can also get more incentives from the school. As you see on bullet number 1, part-time students were not given the same incentives as full-time students. So they may not get as much money, which I understand makes sense because if you're only part-time, you don't have as many classes, as many books, and stuff like that. So that's not as big of a deal. But these part-time students still need assistance, and they may not get the full amount that they need in order to complete their education. Full-time and part-time students do differ. Sometimes it will be adults trying to further their education so they can only go part-time. Like I said before, they may have other jobs or they may have a family and that's too young to go to daycare or a babysitter or stay home by themselves. And then you also have students who work and do not rely on their parents. Those can be both part-time and full-time, but they still can use the extra help in furthering their education. And then you have students who still live at home with no job. And this is a con to the financial aid system in my point of view, and I'll go over that later. But you have students who live at home and they rely on these student aids, the money, as an income. So they're going to school. They may be going to school to further their education, but they also see it as an extra income coming in. So I would rather the money go to the adults that are trying to further their education or the students who work, excuse me, and are trying to further their education, rather than students who still live at home and have no aspirations to get a job and are relying on this instead of getting a job. In Tennessee, a last dollar grant program was designed to provide tuition-free access to community colleges. This grant, called the Reconnect Grant, it targets adult students who have already earned some college credit, but no credentials as of this point. It also limits eligibility to students with an adjusted gross income of $36,000 or less. So I consider this a need-based program. Okay, so it's going to help students who don't make a ton of money and who can't afford to further their education but still wish to. And no credentials means they don't have a job, so they don't have a license to do anything that would give them enough money to basically stay within the standard of living. Okay, some difficult decisions will need to be made when processing these aids. Okay, with limited resources, states must make many difficult decisions about who should receive grants and how large they should be to have an impact. So basically, how much money do they need to give to these people? Are we giving away too much money or not enough money? Okay, you want to make an impact. You want to make sure that they can further their education, but you don't want to give them enough money where they feel like they don't need to have a job and they don't need to work for it and they can just rely on this. A growing number of states are creating higher education public agendas, which I'll go over in this next slide here. Okay, the public agendas, these are specific goals for higher education institutions. Once higher education goals are established, linking financial aid policies with state appropriations for institutions and tuition policy can help guide states through difficult decisions and ensure state goals are achieved. So they want to make sure that their state goals are achieved while they're giving out this money as well. Um, each state has its own goals that need to be achieved, and the university has its goals that they have, and they have to have meetings for to come up with those goals. We want to make sure that these goals are met. Okay, linking tuition policy with financial aid can help maintain affordability even if the tuition increases. A policy such as the one Texas uses to require institutions to reserve a portion of tuition increases can offset the impact of tuition increases for the most price sensitive students. Okay, so if you put a portion back into the reserve, this helps. This will help future students because, as we all know, tuition goes up and down based on how many students are there, or kind of supply and demand, if you will. So this will ensure that that has no impact on the student if tuition increases. I have pros and cons for changing financial aid policies. First, we'll go over the cons of changing financial aid policies. Um, with doing this, some students will not be able to afford tuition. Okay, if we start taking some money out of the need-based, take money from the need-based or the not need-based, you're going to have some students who will not be able to afford furthering their education. All right. Once again, I'll go over some of these students rely on financial aid as an income source. So they don't only see it as furthering their education, they see it as an extra, I don't know, $5,000, every semester or so. And this helps them with other activities or bills. So they can see it as a job as well. With changing it, we also get less business and income for the university. So if you limit the amount that you're giving out to students, you may limit the number of students that you get to come into the university. So that's a con for the university, but it's still doing the student the right way if you are making sure that they do not, go into debt for the rest of their life or an extended period of time. Now, my pros for changing financial aid policies are that you need to balance it between a need-based and a non-need based. As I said before, roughly around $2,000 were allocated roughly around $2,000 more were allocated to non-need based people than there were to need based. That made it to where possibly 10% or 20% of need-based students weren't able to attend because they didn't have the funds in order to do so. With changing the policy, you increase the number of less fortunate students being able to attend the university. This helps them know that they can complete their education. They will be able to get a decent paying job, if not a great paying job. It also decreases in funds not being used correctly by the students. I keep going back to this because I was one of the students who did not have a job for a while. So I was using financial aid in order to pay for stuff or stay afloat my bills. By eliminating or limiting who qualifies for financial aid, you're forcing students like myself to get a full-time job. Or just not relying on financial aid to pay my bills. Another pro for changing these policies are for working adults, so they'll be able to complete their education. I myself have 2 kids, a wife, and I have a full-time job now. And the only way I am able to go to school is through online school, and through financial aid helping me pay for the school. So working adults being able to complete is a big deal to me. If you also limit the amount that is given, you are creating less debt for the students long term. A lot of people I hear, whoever went to college, they say, well, I still owe student loans and I'm going to owe them for the rest of my life. I'm one of those students, but I took out more loans than I should have. And if there was something in place to prevent that, then I wouldn't be in the same situation I'm in. So looking out for future students, this will be a pro for changing the financial policies. Okay, in conclusion, financial aid is a benefit and a resource. Okay, so it's a benefit for those who may not be able to afford college or just need a little help getting over and being able to enroll in school and complete their education. And it's a resource for those who need, once again, who also just need a little bit of help or a lot of help. Well, I went over all this as well as ensuring that the right people receive the assistance. So going back to balancing the non-need based and the need based financial aid is to ensure that we can help as many people as possible with this financial aid and not just giving it to those who have good grades. There's grants, there's scholarships, and all this out there for those types of people. This also helps students further their education no matter their income or age. So this is for poor people, rich people, as well as kids coming straight out of high school or working adults such as myself or even people older than me. And finally, ensuring that students are not in debt for the rest of their lives. Debt is a huge deal, and it scares a lot of people. It worries people how much debt they're in. And most of the time, a lot of us will not get a job that will help us pay for the rest of, for the debt that we owe with financial aid. So I appreciate you going through these slides with me. I hope this is beneficial. Just let me know if you have any feedback on this to help me make this any better. Thank you.